Reddit is a great place to share all sorts of information, and therefore it's also home to some of the most disturbing stories online. Personally, it's where I end up finding most of the content for my videos. Tonight, I've prepared 4 stories ranging from only slightly disturbing to very disturbing. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the video. Two years ago, the entirety of Serbia was shaken when a 13-year-old boy opened fire in an elementary school. 9 students and 1 security guard were killed in the incident, while 7 others were injured. The shooter surrendered himself to the police shortly after the shooting occurred. However, 13 years is too young to be held criminally responsible in Serbia. Therefore, the legal charges fell onto his parents. His father, who had taught him how to shoot, was sentenced to 14.5 years in prison, while his mother was sentenced to 3. What's especially chilling is the level of preparation involved. Investigations found that the assailant had been planning the shooting for about a month, having prepared a list of students to target and a dedicated path through the school. Teachers later described him as quiet and academically successful, the kind of description attributed to someone you'd never expect this action from, and the kind that makes your skin crawl in retrospect. In the aftermath of the incident, the minimum age of criminal responsibility in Serbia was lowered to 12 years old. Amnesty was granted to Serbian citizens who chose to surrender their illegal or unregistered firearms, of which 78,000 were handed over to the government, and 1,200 police officers were hired to improve security in schools. The Belgrade shooting was a clear-cut tragedy, and has forever left its mark on Serbia, and for some reason, Indonesia as well. Fast forward to 15 days ago as I'm writing this. I came across all this information and more in a post created on r/InternetMysteries. Discovered disturbing fake Facebook profiles impersonating victims of the Serbian school shooting. What's going on? What truly shocked me was when I accidentally came across the Facebook profile of one of the murdered girls. At first, I thought it was her actual profile, but I was soon unpleasantly surprised to discover that there was a whole series of fake Facebook profiles impersonating the murdered children and the shooter. The content on these profiles is also quite disturbing and confusing. Many of them have other similar profiles in their friends list. I'm not sure whether all the profiles are made by the same person or by a group of different people, but I've noticed a kind of fan page or roleplay dynamic. For example, one of the murdered girl's profiles is listed as being in a relationship with the shooter's profile. These profiles often post video animations using pictures of the children, and it seems that the person behind the profiles genuinely sympathizes with the victims, but we can all agree that it's done in a very disturbing way. In one story post, someone even uploaded a photo of the classroom after the shooting, showing the bodies and the blood on the floor. I'm someone from the Balkans, and I can assure you that the media covered this story day and night, but I've never seen such photos, and didn't even believe they existed. After doing a bit of digging on my own, I'm disturbed by what I found. Tens of thousands of active users are a part of Facebook groups romanticizing the perpetrator, role-playing as the victims, and using them as interactions on their post. Honestly, I'm hesitant to even show faces in these photos, as using their photos for these acts seems flat out disrespectful. This post reads out, "Who is your idol?" while listing the name of the shooter and those who lost their lives. Here's a post requesting users to comment photos of one of the victims to be rated, to which many users complied. Then there are several photos with trivia questions, or photo/edit competitions. I agree that, in some sense, there is remorse felt for the victims of the tragedy, but that's easily overshadowed by how odd everything else is. It's hard for me to find the words to describe this. Why are you treating these victims like they're some sort of celebrity idol, basing your entire account around them, as if you were them? Why are you rating pictures of them, creating edits of them, etc.? It's like the boundaries between grief and obsession have completely collapsed. Whatever the reason behind this, it feels highly inappropriate considering the ages of everyone involved in the tragedy. In regards to the last part of OP's statement on the gory images, I saw at least one that contained bloody shoes with the names of the victims, though I'm not sure if it's actually related to the incident or not. The most confusing part of all of this is that the posts are in Indonesian. All of the accounts either speak Indonesian, are from Indonesia, or both. That isn't to say that you're not allowed to grieve for the victims, no matter where you are in the world, but what is it about this incident in Belgrade that latched onto a specific corner of the internet in Indonesia? As someone who knows almost nothing about Indonesian culture, perhaps I shouldn't speak on this. I won't say that the romanticization of murderers doesn't exist within the US, as I've seen more TikTok self-ships with serial killers than I care to admit, but I've absolutely not seen something of this scale, and certainly not with young students. I'm from the Balkans too, so I usually stay away from this topic. It's just creepy and disturbing. But I'll add one little thing. If you ever want to dive into something really fucked up, look into the weird true crime RP scene on Facebook, especially with Indonesian accounts. There's this whole subculture where people romanticize victims and killers, sometimes without really understanding the context. They turn real tragedies into some kind of twisted fanfiction. I think everyone who sees this is going to interpret it differently. As OP stated, some posts genuinely express sadness over the incident and the students who were killed, but on Reddit, a large majority of the posts are seen as disrespectful or creepy, and as someone out of the loop, I have to agree with that. Perhaps this is a consequence of the digital age. In a world where we are highly exposed to explicit content, where entire generations had unrestricted access to sites such as LiveLeak, we've become desensitized to tragedies and can no longer process or react to them as people did in the past. Arcades are supposed to be a safe haven of fun for all ages, though particularly for children. A place where you don't have to worry about the outside world and can simply immerse yourself in DDR or whatever you like to play. But imagine your favorite machine no longer displayed a game, but instead, 2 missing children from 1977 and 1982. Several years ago, posts began flooding into Reddit documenting user encounters with these machines, and this wasn't just one location. This was all around the US. Greenville, South Carolina, Dallas, Texas, practically any arcade with this machine, the Cent Mini Golf Cabinet. The boy on the left is Taj Allen Merriman, born May 17th, 1982, last seen in Darrington Valley, Pennsylvania. On the right is Stephen Philip Curtis, born March 3rd, 1977, last seen in Hoquiam, Washington. And on top is a phone number leading to the US Missing Children Hotline. Now these are 2 different time periods and 2 very different locations, so we can assume these children have nothing to do with each other. And now we're left with the most common question I ask myself while creating these videos. Why? Why are 2 missing boys from so long ago plastered to the screen of mini golf machines all across the country? The easiest way to get to the bottom of this is by looking into the boys themselves. The furthest back I've found mentions of this screen is in an Atari form from 2013. Years ago, I remember seeing a mini golf arcade game in a gas station near me. I wasn't able to play it, but I remember watching the demo and seeing the screen with the 2 missing boys pop up. That was the only time I've ever seen that done in an arcade game. I always wondered what became of the 2 boys shown in mini golf, and recently decided to look into their cases. Taj Allen Merriman's fate was easily found. It seems his was a family abduction, and he was found safe on July 12, 1985 in Georgia. That was the date the mother was arrested for the abduction, according to the Beaver County Times. I haven't been able to find anything on the other boy though. OP's right. In a newspaper from 1985, we can see that Taj Allen Merriman was abducted by his mother during a custody battle, but was shortly thereafter returned to his father. The story of Stephen Philip Curtis is a bit more complicated. While I can't find any reports online about his disappearance or his status as a missing person, forum users were able to find someone with the same name and age living in Washington. For now, we can just assume that he's safe and sound, despite whatever caused him to be listed as missing. As I mentioned earlier, the only machine these missing screens showed up on was the Cent Mini Golf machine. Cent Technologies was an arcade game company founded in 1982 by ex-Atari employees. However, it went bankrupt shortly after in 1988, but not before producing quite a few games. Members of the Vintage Arcade Preservation Society discovered that these missing children screens were also present in 2 other games, Gimme a Break and Stompin'. However, these were completely different children, meaning that there were 6 missing children in total. Melinda Marie Smith, no information. April Rose Yates, believed to have been taken by her non-custodial father. Daniel Godfrey Owens, no information. Charles Brandon Morris, seems to reside in Tennessee as a doctor, though this could just be someone with the same name in the same state. No information about him being missing. Honestly, I'm shocked that I found next to nothing about these children, not even in official missing persons databases. You'd think I'd be able to find something about the Hide and Seek Foundation, whose logo appears on all of these screens, but it's difficult to confirm that this foundation even existed in the first place. Internet sleuths were so intrigued by these missing children reports that they reached directly out to those who had worked with Cent Technologies before the company went under, namely an ex-Atari engineer, Dennis Coble. In an interview between Dennis and a Scott Stilfen, Dennis answers, to the best of his knowledge, the story behind these children and why their pictures appeared in his arcade machines. Do you recall anything about the digitized photos of missing kids in certain Cent arcade games, and how Cent came to include them? Yes, I have some memories of those days, but after 30 years I won't be able to guarantee the veracity of those memories. I have a slightly different recollection of those FBI photos than do the other people you've asked. Near the end of the mini golf game's creation, I recall someone suggesting that we implement the missing children feature. Although the game was finished at the time, I recall adding the switch-controlled feature to a revision of the ROM. The code was very simple, and it consisted of a timer, a check for whether the feature was enabled via the onboard option switches, and the display of a static screen showing the children. The option switch could be enabled or disabled, which is why sometimes you see the feature and sometimes you don't, depending on how tech-savvy the operator was and whether or not they wished to enable the feature or not. Do you agree that this was most likely something that the FBI approached Cent with? I really don't know who initiated the Missing Kids project, but it seems likely the FBI did request it. You have to remember though that Cent was a very small company, and I would be a little surprised if the FBI knew of us directly. Really couldn't say. Do you recall how the digitized photos were implemented? Did you or someone at Cent digitize the photos? All I know is that we were given a completed screen, just like the final product you've seen. So there you have it. Someone, most likely the FBI, provided these images to Cent to implement into their games. While this doesn't exactly clear up every question we had, such as the status of the remaining missing children, this does give us a better understanding of what happened here. If you'd like to play the game yourself, versions of Cent's mini golf game exist online, and still contain the idle screens that confuse quite a few arcade goers.
End of a 20-mile road into Arches National Park, you come to this area known as the Devil's Garden. There's a walk that goes out about 3 miles.
I believe I found a body on a Boy Scout campout 10 years ago. Like the title says, I believe I found a buried body on a Boy Scout camping trip about 10 years ago. I'd like help finding the site. The trip was somewhere in the mountains of Utah. It was located somewhere in this area. I think I remember needing to pay to get up to where the campsite was, meaning it was probably inside one of the national forests, but I don't remember it being near any other campsites. This is a picture of what I remember. Like I said, it was 10 years ago, so it's not super detailed. The body was in a trash bag that was buried next to some bushes. I had unburied part of it with a shovel and ripped a hole in the bag to see what looked like a plaid shirt before one of my scout leaders made me fill the hole. This immediately raised red flags amongst Reddit users, as the scout leader's actions come off as quite suspicious. Do you still have contact with anyone from your troop or your scout leaders? Unfortunately not. My parents might still be in touch with one of them, but I have no idea where the other leaders may be. I brought it up with the other scouts a few years back, and none of them remembered where it was. If the scout leader had them bury it, I'm not sure they're the person to talk to for answers, unless he later called in police and just wanted to keep the kids away from it for the moment. It was difficult to find any leads for this, as OP didn't exactly have the memory to confirm where this took place. nor could they get into contact with any of the scout leaders at the time. However, one user did have a similar experience around the same time and location that OP mentioned in their post. In either 2010 or 2011, I had a very similar experience in the same area. As we pulled into a campsite, we passed a park ranger's truck. When we got out, we smelled the stench of decomposition. I followed my nose from the campsite to a spot close by. As you described, there was a shallowly buried trash bag. I poked a hole in the bag with a stick, and out popped a bone. Looked like a rib, just poking out of the bag. I was ready to nope out of there, but also felt a responsibility to alert someone to this possible shallow grave. We walked back to the park ranger's truck and began looking for him. We may have called out for him, I don't recall, but he shortly came back to his truck out of the woods or from another campfire spot. We told him about what we'd found. He stopped us and said people routinely came up to there to party and leave huge messes. He said he had personally buried the bag we had found. Apparently the previous occupants of that spot had left a lot of meat in beer cans. Why a forest ranger would bury it instead of carrying it out, I have no idea. The thought occurred to both my wife and I that maybe this dude was a murderer and was trying to cover up his kill. He did end up putting some pressure on us to leave, saying this spot got pretty loud on the weekends. He said we wouldn't be able to sleep if we camped there, and suggested we go down the hill to the paid campground we had passed. There was an eerie sense that he really wanted us to leave, but I know that's subjective and colored by my adrenaline at having found what I thought could be remains. I'm pretty sure this is the campground down the hill we ended up staying at. The commenter links a location that does fall within OP's original map, though that doesn't confirm that these two events were related, nor that either of them were actually malicious. A name thrown around by a few commenters, including the user whose story I just read out, was Susan Powell. In the last few days of 2009, a year or so before OP allegedly found the trash bag body, an entire family was reported missing in West Valley City, Utah, just outside of OP's map. Susan and Joshua Powell and their 2 sons were only missing for about a day, when Joshua and the 2 boys returned home without Susan. Joshua was immediately taken into questioning as a person of interest in the disappearance of Susan Powell. However, he stated that he took the 2 boys out camping and left Susan asleep at home. Despite the fact that it was blizzarding outside, the eldest son confirmed that the camping trip did happen. However, he stated that his mother came along with them. Upon searching the Powell residence, Susan's blood was found, along with a handwritten letter from Susan expressing fear for her life. In 2012, police released documents regarding Joshua's activities leading up to the disappearance of his wife, liquidating her retirement accounts, canceling her regularly scheduled chiropractic sessions, and discussing with coworkers how to hide a body in an abandoned mine shaft in western Utah. Due to the pressure from law enforcement, Joshua packed his bags and took his 2 sons to permanently live with him in Washington. Fast forward 2 years, and Joshua ends up killing himself and his 2 sons after spreading gasoline throughout their house and igniting it. To this day, Susan Powell's body hasn't been found, despite numerous attempts, and it's widely believed that Joshua was the one who killed her. The reason I, and a few Redditors, mention this case is because it takes place relatively around the same area at the same time. It was only after I began writing this that I noticed Joshua's line about being on a camping trip during the time of Susan's disappearance, lining up with the campsite locations mentioned by prior users. So did these 2 Redditors happen upon Susan Powell's body? There's really no way for us to know, though I will mention one last detail. From 1913 to 2019, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints was heavily involved with the Boy Scouts of America. OP even goes on to confirm that his Boy Scout troop was associated with the Latter-day Saints. So therefore, it's possible that the suspicious troop leader who stopped OP from uncovering the body was also a member of the Latter-day Saints. Coincidentally enough, both Joshua and Susan Powell were, at some times in their life, members of this very church. This could mean anything, or it could mean nothing. This isn't the first time that I've covered someone hearing strange noises in their home, and it probably won't be the last. 5 years ago, one Reddit user took to r/RBI after hearing the word Venus coming from somewhere inside their apartment. Are we being stalked or recorded? need advice on what it could be. I'm a college student and I basically live in 2 apartments. I stay at my brother's apartment a lot, but I mostly stay at my own apartment that I share. I live with my friend who is a pretty attractive girl, so I always worry that she would be an easy target for a stalker or a creep. There have been some weird suitors in the past couple of years, but nothing like stalking. So today we got a Christmas tree for the apartment and we were just chilling in the living room when we heard a device make a swooshing sound from the next room over. And then there was an Alexa-type male voice recording saying the word Venus. It sounded as if a device was turning on or off or something like that. I go over there and see if one of our phones went off, but there weren't any mobile devices or speakers in the kitchen. I go back in the living room and we check our phones to see if one of us got a message, but neither of us did. She asked me if I was f***ing with her, but I immediately asked her the same thing. This kind of freaked her out, and with my paranoia, I immediately thought it could be some sort of recording device or something to spy on her. In my research, the only thing I could come up with that could have possibly made the Venus noise was maybe an LG Venus phone turning on. It's a burner phone that has a decent camera. This could potentially be terrifying if there's a cell phone turning on in our apartment that we've been living in for over 5 months. Neither of us own any extra phones, especially a burner. I need to know what this could be. OP goes on to mention that he's heard additional noises from the upstairs neighbors, such as vibrating, and a sound equivalent to someone dropping a bowling ball on the floor. The latter incident happened at night, when none of the upstairs lights were turned on. So what could this be? Looking into the Venus LG phone, in a video from 17 years ago, this specific model seems to perfectly recreate what OP heard. I know it's difficult to hear with all the people talking, but after listening countless times, I swear I hear it say Venus. Entertaining the idea that this is the device in question, using a phone this old seems less than optimal for spying on someone, but not impossible, as it does have a camera. Other theories include OP being too paranoid, or one of them having a mobile app regarding astronomy or astrology, though it would be strange for your phone to randomly announce Venus with no other context. Almost a month later, OP posts an update. For the past month or so, everything seemed to be fine, nothing out of the ordinary, and eventually we even forgot about the whole thing in general. Then we started hearing a weird noise outside that sounded like an intermittent buzzing or hum toward the back of the house where the bathroom window is located. Houses make weird noises all the time, so I told my friend not to worry about it because there's nothing in that little alleyway on the side of the house besides an air conditioning unit. A couple days later, I went around the house to check it out. When I turned the corner, I saw a metal bench that wasn't there a couple weeks ago. A bench is no big deal, especially when you're renting a house. The owner is going to store some shit without you knowing. The thing that weirded me out was that it was intentionally put right under our bathroom window. I took a pic of it because something about it rubbed me the wrong way. When a grown-ass man like me stands on it, you're at the perfect height to try to sneak a peek through the little cracks in the bathroom window's old curtains. When I could see through the cracks, I felt a knot in my stomach. I immediately sent a pic to our landlord, and they said they don't own that bench, so it must have been left over from the previous tenants. I knew this wasn't the case because the bench wasn't there in December when I did a whole sweep of the house. That same night, I moved the bench away from the window and flipped it upside down just to see what would happen. Sure enough, a week later, and the bench is in its original place I found it, under the bathroom window, right side up. As of a couple days ago, we set up cameras on the exterior of the house. They covered the door, the whole front porch, and the driveway on the side of the house. Now it's just another game of wait and see. I really hope that this is just a weird coincidence, because this is just strange. If there's actually a peeping Tom or a stalker, or hopefully not something worse, then I'm grabbing my gun and going after this person myself. After that, OP pretty much stopped posting. He did mention that he lived in New Orleans, so I tried to find any incidents reported around that time that OP went offline, but I found nothing. Whenever someone stops posting in the middle of a mystery like this, you have to take into account all possibilities. 1. Something bad happened to OP. 2. This is just a fake mystery cut off for dramatic effect. 3. Nothing happened, and OP didn't feel like updating. Assuming this is real, which isn't too far-fetched, it seems that someone was using a Venus LG phone to record OP and their roommate from outside their bathroom window. Just a reminder to always be aware of your surroundings, especially when you figure that something might be wrong.